Yes, welcome. Welcome to Monday. Man, it is Monday. Monday, June 23rd. Yep. What is it? June 20th, longest day of the year. I really felt that one. So welcome to June 23rd, Monday. And welcome to the HEF podcast. That's the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, which is the organization started by the amazing Brenda Dickinson. If you haven't heard of her, you're really missing out. We talk about her all the time because she's essentially the legacy, the name of home education in Florida, dating all the way back to the 1980s when she sat with Representative Daniel Webster and her husband Craig Dickinson, and they helped pin the original language that became home education law and home education rights in Florida for so many parents. And that is the right to teach your own children your own way as you see fit. The very concept that a public education or a public school deserves your children by default is something that we don't agree with. We think parents have first right of refusal to teach their own kids, and they should always have that authority. That's what we stand for. That's what Brenda has stood for the last 40 years. And now that she is retiring, that's what we continue to stand for. We want to say thank you to our top sponsors. That is Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. And wouldn't you know that we have TBHC Group with us today. Kim Hannon, welcome to the podcast. How are you? I forgot to turn your sound on. She said she's good, though. Sorry.
It's okay.
How's your year been? It's been an exciting watching the session, I guess.
It's been an interesting year for sure.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been staying busy.
Yes. And now it's convention and conference season. I think we had our first kickoff with Brenda's announcing her retirement at the FPEA convention. And,
Yep.
you know, we had been to one of the open houses. I think some of these conferences are smaller, so they call themselves open houses, but they're starting to grow in various areas. We went to one in Jacksonville, and they're doing well. There was the small little facility that they had, bless their hearts. People were kind of like shoulder to shoulder and hip to hip in the aisles trying to squeeze by, and you know, it's difficult when you're trying to have conversations with the parents and the kids are tugging on them. And I think that it's important. Some of these conversations are really important, but these conferences are definitely important. And that's why I love the one that you throw in Tampa, because we've got the one in Orlando, but then we also now have one in Tampa. And this is second or third year. I'm losing track.
This will be the third year.
Third
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Welcome, Brenda. She made it.
Hey.
I'm so glad she
Hi,
made it.
Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
Gotta
How
figure
are you,
out.
Kim?
Good, Brenda.
I gotta figure out how to
It's
get
in the
all of our
dark.
faces here. Hold tight. You're so dark. Yeah. What did you do?
I'm in the dark. Let me see if I can put some lights on.
Well,
I'm at my
head doesn't show here. Hold on.
I'm at my nephew's house.
Oh, okay. That gets us all in there. I think we're all squeezed in now. Hey, well, welcome, Brenda. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so the TBHC Group conference, it's awesome. We've been to it each year that you've put it on, and we're so thankful. We're so thankful for it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, you referenced the FPEA conference a few times, and I mean, convention is a better word for that. And the event that they throw, I mean, it's the best one in the country, you know, it's where everyone who homeschools in Florida can come together, and it serves such an incredible purpose. I can't imagine not having the FPEA conference as part of our homeschool journey, not just for myself as a parent, but also for my kids.
Yeah.
It's a really cool opportunity for them to come together and kind of see that outside of our little bubble of our homeschool world, there's a whole greater world of homeschooling out there. So that's always super fun for them. But then there's also a place for regional conferences as well, for people to come together within their own community to recognize in their own community who is homeschooling. and just to be able to connect with other families, with co-ops, and with local businesses that are supporting the homeschool movement. So it's both serve such unique purposes, and there is an importance to both of them. For us in the Tampa Bay area, the Tampa Bay area is one of the reasons why DeSantis calls Florida the homeschooling state. We have more homeschoolers here than pretty much anywhere else in the country.
That's right.
And so for us to have a time and a place to come together and support each other, and to it's so important for us to recognize as homeschool parents that no matter where we are in our journey of homeschooling, there's someone in the road ahead of us who can guide us and direct us on our next step. And there's someone behind us who we may not feel like we know what we're talking about, but we know more than the person behind us, where we can then lift them up and share with them, even if it's just sharing our struggles and helping them to see, like, I know it's hard. I've been there too. For them to know that they're not in it alone, it's so important. And it's why we do what we do to support our community.
I couldn't agree more. You'd said, some people are ahead of us, some are behind us. And it's in our day and age, I guess, where everybody gives our one-liners on Twitter and our quasi, conversations on Facebook, and it's easy to kind of bounce from one thing to another and not really go deep on anything. And there's 8,000 people here, 30,000 in another group, and you don't know anybody. And it's very difficult to get to know people. And then sometimes you start hearing all of these dissonant voices, and you don't know who to trust, and it goes back to well, who do you trust? Seeing people face to face, there's something really, really changing about the dynamic of a conversation when you are face to face with someone, talking with them, that I think is so much needed. And it's one of my absolute favorite things about the conferences and about the conventions is it's really difficult when somebody says their opinion, or they're talking, or they're saying, well, I think this. And when you're staring face to face in them and the conversation gets to be had, there's this moment where accountability is real. The importance of clear articulation and information is real. You've got a human being, not a keyboard warrior. And that is a great dynamic that I love that these conferences and conventions preserve. And I really look forward to leaning into that more. I enjoy that part of it a lot. I've had some tough conversations, man. At the FPEA conversation, this one gentleman stopped me. Crystal was standing there.
I was an awkward witness to that conversation. I just sat there and listened.
Yeah, it had every element from the tough man handshake down to the telling each other that you're wrong, and the citing sources, and you may think this, but you don't know. And it was but at the end of it, we smiled and walked away, and it was a very interesting dialogue and a good one. And I hope that gentleman stays in contact with us, because I like hearing what he had to say, even though I think he was wrong. And I think that is really important, that we're able to do things like that. And these face-to-face places are really where that happens. And the reason why they're so critical is you get so many articles, you get so many news outlets, and they're propped up. We look at these news outlets, regardless of what people think of the news, we still look to them for information sources. We may hate them. We may pick our favorite ones, or cherry pick left or right, or whatever we think is in the middle. But ultimately, we still go to them for sources of information. And I have to tell you, I have prepped something for us to look at today. And I think it ties into your conference and the importance of it. So this is an article that was posted in September of 2023, September 5th. Now, mind you, well, let me just read the first part of the article. So the article's topic says, Disney tickets, PlayStation 5, big screen TVs, Florida parents exploit DeSantis school voucher. The very opening line of the article says, Florida parents are taking advantage of expanded school voucher programs championed by Governor DeSantis, according to messages from private Facebook groups. How'd you get those? The private Facebook messages reveal how parents are using the new personalized education program. how is that possible that you have data on how it's being used for an article printed in September 5th when the funds didn't drop till the end of September, early part of October, due to all the issues they were having? I think that I
Yeah,
would
I
love to
certainly
see,
didn't have my money then.
no,
Yeah,
and I would
no,
love to
no one
see
did.
someone who believes in accountability from this outlet step forward and have a conversation with us. I'll invite you onto the podcast. We can discuss it. I'm curious to know how you got your data, because there wasn't any data on the PEP program at that point. And things like this, the nuance, see, nobody knows that. Nobody's paying attention to that piece of information. They just read the headline article. They just get stirred up. They go to Reddit where they saw it on Reddit. Here it was. So people will post these articles, and then in order to get them out to certain places, they employ their like army of posters on places like Reddit. Here's the person who originally shared it to Reddit. This person has like something million, views and so many thousands, and all they do is just regurgitate stuff over. I was looking into them because I do deep dives and I'm a nerd like that. It's frustrating though, because they start to pump this out, and it really is just that first paragraph and the article heading, and people don't read that much deeper. They don't take the conversations further till you have them face to face. So you have those moments where you can sit down and dialogue over it. But here's, article after article after article. In fact, I made a whole spreadsheet full of articles that I'm showing to everyone who's on the screen. And every single one of them from 2023 through 2024 to 2025 blasts the voucher program and all these expenditures, stealing money from public schools. Actually, I just saw the other day, Step Up for Students posted something where, they were letting parents know that public schools are actually able to be providers in the marketplace. And there's 67 districts, and I think they said somewhere between 10 and 15 have been brought on board by this point. And I mean, that they're able to, they just don't. But these nuanced parts of conversation aren't what I hear people talking about. I hear them talking about the headlines. When we see them face to face and we're having conversations with them, they just regurgitate the talking points. And so you've got one crowd who just absolutely hates homeschooling, and they're destroying everything in public schools, and the public school system's being dismantled by these evil conservatives who are just stealing money and siphoning it off. And then you've got these homeschoolers who are like, man, it's so much better now than it was in the 80s when we had to hide. Thank you, Brenda, for all the hard work you've done. We used to have to hide just to do the thing that should be our right by nature, that they're our kids and we should raise them. Why is that so difficult to understand? And it's so much better now, though. We don't have to hide. Isn't that great? Homeschooling's great now. School choice is awesome. And these two like silos don't interact. They just kind of like build their team up, and then fight over policy when it comes time for session. And that's really the challenge where we fit in, which is we're in the middle of that fight. And we're in the middle of that tug-of-war match, vying for the attention of our representatives and legislators. And in order to do that effectively, we need our whole community to understand the game. And we need them to understand how it's played and what role we play in it. And when I say we, I don't mean we, the Home Education Foundation. I mean we as parents. The role we as parents play in it. That our voice carries weight. They're our representatives. They represent us. We have to be able to speak up and say, hey, here's what matters to me. But in a way where they hear a unifying message. Otherwise, they're going to hear a very unified message on one end. Dismantle it, take it away,
Well, I think one thing too, Jason, is that parents need to be armed with accurate information.
Yes.
And what you mentioned in that first article, it's no secret. John Kirtley came to the legislature and talked about the purchases that they were referring to, but it happened to be on the scholarship for children with disabilities.
Right.
And he said a large screen TV for somebody that is visually impaired is a reasonable expense. And so parents got off on the wrong
Yeah.
information, and they started blasting the new PEP, which you accurately pointed out wasn't even yet able for parents to get the money.
Mm-hmm.
So people need a place to go for accurate information.
They do, because
And
that's important.
What we can do
Yeah.
at the Home Education Foundation.
Yeah, and you're I think you're implying or getting to what we have built with our Discord server. And there's a place for these conversations. And if you're not in there, you should definitely jump into our Discord server. There's a place on our website where you just go to our website. Right there at the top, there's a button that says Discord, and that'll take you right in. But if you want more information, you can click on Community, and our forum page or our Discord page will give you accurate information as to what you can expect from this tool as you move forward. So if you haven't checked that out, you should check it out. But that's where we share accurate information. Articles like these will find their place there with talking points and information and how to break them down, because I'm a dork, I'm a nerd, that's what I'm into, and that's what I do. And everyone can benefit. I think the challenge, one of the key challenges, I was talking with another dad about this over the weekend. One of the key challenges is that in the fight that we had this session over extracurricular activities with the superintendents and the different districts, I had so many parents come to me and complain and say, oh, my kid's being told they can't play. They're being told that the school's at capacity. They're being told that they just can't play to anywhere but their zone school, and on and on and on and on. And I would explain to them what the law stated, what the statute stated, and I would help them understand it. And then they would dip out. They would disappear and ghost. We ended up with still having about 40-something cases that didn't dip out. But I remember so many that did. And if you multiply the number of cases we did have by 4, like 4 who just don't fight because they don't feel confident. They don't. A lot of them would start the conversation, complain about it, and then disappear. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't feel confident in this. I don't really know the statutes like you do. I don't feel like I can do this. I'm like, okay, I understand that. And I understand that position that they feel that they're in and that lack of confidence. And I think a fire alarm is going off or something. Anyway, hopefully the house isn't burning down. We'll find out soon. Stay tuned.
Smoke.
Yeah, if you see smoke coming through, tell me on stream, because that's not an effect that won't be intentional. No, but where was I?
The people who they don't feel like they have the knowledge to fight. And
Yeah.
I came across that too. I
Yeah.
had so many people say to me, oh no, but you don't understand because they told me XYZ. I'm like, yes, I know, but I'm telling you it's actually ABC. And once I informed them, they are afraid to do anything with it. They're afraid to fight because they're afraid that by fighting, it's going to hurt whatever chance their kid has. So they're just going along with whatever the county says because they're afraid to take up the fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And that ultimately is the point of our Discord server, is to help parents have the accurate information so that they know, so that if they need help writing those emails, we can have them in a group with other people in their county who have done that. Like you said, those who have been there before and those who come after, we can put them alongside people who've been there in their shoes, and they can say, hey, here's what we wrote to them, and here's how we talked about that. And we can come in, the Home Education Foundation, with the statutes and the links and the documentation and the historical knowledge, the legacy knowledge, to undergird them so that they can feel confident and prop them up. And I have no problems telling people, hey, you look good in a black suit, and I get out there and speak up.
Yeah. And I'll say from my personal experience with this, because we're dealing with this right now with my oldest. And what I've learned is that the people directly at the school who we're dealing with, they're just going off of what's always been told to them by the district.
Right.
They want to see the kids who are the best possible athletes at their schools playing.
Yeah.
So they're very willing to work with us once we say, hey, I know you said XYZ, but they're like, oh, great. Okay, let's do this. So the people at the schools are not against you.
No. No.
So just being willing to have that conversation sometimes with the athletic director at the school where you want to go to can make the difference. You just have to go with the information that they may not have,
Right.
And once you share the information, they're willing to listen. They're just going off of misinformation that's been handed down to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents assume that the people at the schools are fully informed and have all the correct information. And that's just not the case. Whether because of turnover or poor training or whatever the cause is, it's just really not the case that they necessarily have the accurate information.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the Discord, one of the things that we're trying to build are like people who are stronger in terms of wanting to reach out to legislators, hold them accountable, hold the districts accountable. What are we calling that? Ambassadors?
I think. I haven't had a clever name thought up. I've just been dealing with the logistics of putting it all together. So
I like somebody that's better really
advocate. Yeah. So somebody that's a little bit stronger, has more self-confidence, knows the law, and is willing to go with you or take up the battle with you, it would be, helpful in those areas. And so aren't we trying to ask people who are those kinds of leaders to join our Discord?
We are, and we have people joining who call themselves homeschooling mama bears and all. I think that might be very
great.
clever.
Maybe that's
that's what we're looking for. Yeah, we're looking.
Yeah,
for
you are.
They don't mind taking people under their wing, and they'll say, "Hey, listen, I've been there. I've know this. I'll go with you." And I appreciate that from a digital standpoint, where we can help people get together in their county and facilitate that in Discord, but then among themselves, because they're in the same county, they can meet up. They can actually get together, and that comes back to the face-to-face part that we were talking about, where it helps people boots on the ground wise connect to each other, not just randoms from New Jersey who want to talk about the way scholarships and homeschooling work, and then you realize they're not even in Florida, and you're like scratching your head, trying to figure out among the 30,000 people in this Facebook group who actually knows what they're talking about. That's a challenge. That's a very real challenge, and it is a challenge because the article.
The answer is very few.
Sorry.
The answer is very few.
Yeah. And the articles that are pumped out, are pumped out in mass. I need to put some sort of visual flow chart together on that, like how this article from this person back to back to back. But the information that I have found and done research on it, they're just churning these things out. There is a machine out there that's rewording things and churning them out and stirring up, because it's easy to stir people up to anger. You should see the Reddit comments. If you think that homeschooling, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here, but if you think that homeschooling is great and it's wonderful and it's so much more mainstream now, you have another thing coming, because the pendulum always swings. And if you haven't read the comments below some of these Reddit threads, you owe it to yourself to go do that, at least for a little bit. You don't have to engage or comment back, but you should know what people think about it. There are people who absolutely hate that their tax money funds anything that has to do with you, period. And that's not just the scholarship. That's like just allowing you access to do what you want to do. That you can go to any of these places. As a home education student, you get dual enrollment, you get to participate in school sports, you get a bunch of stuff. We're not even talking about scholarships at the moment. There's a lot you have access to as a homeschool student. They absolutely loathe all of that. And it's an us versus them mentality that emerges. People don't want to read and think. That's painful. That's very painful. It takes time. It's effort. I don't like it. And so that's what we're up against. And that, depending on how large that of a voice that entity gets, I don't want to call it a side because I don't like the idea of sides. I listen to a lot of the Democrats in session talk about how some of their grandkids were homeschooling and some of their nieces or nephews, etc. So this isn't a partisan issue. Home education is not a partisan issue. It's a freedom issue. And that's important to everybody. And so
we can't assume the freedom is always going to be there.
No.
I mean, I think it's Reagan. Is it Reagan? Freedom is only one generation away from extinction, right? Like, we have to continue fighting for the freedom that we have. We can't just assume we're always going to have it, and we can't assume it's going to be there for our kids if they want it.
Yeah.
We have to stay informed of what is going on in Tallahassee and what's going on in Washington.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, like, I think as homeschoolers, sometimes we say, oh, well, what happens at the school board's not my problem. It's very much your problem, homeschool parent. You should be voting for whoever's going to be put on the school board. You should be aware of what's going on. You should be attending those meetings when you can.
And you should be letting them know how many you are.
And it also is, it's affecting the community in which your children are living and in which they're going to be raising their families. So it's not an us versus them issue. It's a community issue that we need to be paying attention to the bigger picture and not just what's happening directly in our homes.
Well, let me say something about the school boards, because I think they're important and we overlook that.
Go ahead.
But generally, those people that get elected to the school board progress to the next level and the next level and become legislators.
That's right.
So if you can get to know them at the local level, you'll have a friend in Tallahassee or Washington.
Right.
And the other thing is, I've found friendly people on the school board in the past when we were having issues, and I could go to them and say, hey, we have a problem with the district. They are not allowing our kids to do X, Y, Z. Can you help me with that? We had a big issue in one county, and it was one school board member I had met through a random connection, and I went to that school board member and explained the issue, and she took up our cause and helped us to get it turned around. It was the creation of a new policy in that district, and it would have affected a lot of homeschoolers. So getting to know your local officials is really very important. I'm glad you brought that up, Kim.
Yeah, no, that's great, Kim. I'm very glad you brought that up. It can't be overlooked, and even to extrapolate further out, the FHSAA historically didn't love home education students, but now they've been very helpful. I got to be honest, they were very helpful during this session with the bill that we were aimed at trying to fix the issue for homeschool students and for private school students. And you've got that series of like PEP student who was a hybrid student who was kind of in both. So it affected, like a little Venn diagram, a swath of them. And they're looking at it like, hey, we just want every student to be treated equally and to be able to play and it to be fair, across the board. And I appreciate that. I appreciate.
And that's because we built relationships with them.
And that's changed.
Back prior to 1996, they had passed a bylaw that said no home educated student can participate at any of our member schools.
Right.
And it's been a process, and it's building those relationships with the head. And that's most of the time going back to misinformation. Most of the time, people that are against you are just misinformed.
Right. And there is I guess more of what the kind of arrow target I was getting at is that over time, if you show up and you show up well, and you're helpful, and you're thoughtful, and you're a problem solver, people don't mind you being around. They're actually appreciative that you're there and involved, and they change their minds. And if we don't show up in that face-to-face place, the school boards, the various places, if we don't show up to our representatives and our senators walking in their campaigns, and we don't give them that helpful visibility in that reputation moment, they don't have that to look back on and think fondly of or want to protect. And I think that's a very important thing that we foster by being involved and using our time in that way. It touches more than just the sports thing. Like all of the differences and nuances touch things: dual enrollment, high school credits, transfer of credits. Like there's a lot, and you actually have a lot of really helpful workshops, or what do you call your breakout sessions?
Breakout sessions.
Okay, there you go. You have a lot of really helpful
We do.
breakout
Yeah,
session?
we have so many this year. It's one of those things where as we're like working through it, I was like, I wish I could go to these, We actually have Step Up coming this year,
Right.
and they're going to have a representative going through all the scholarships and explaining the nuances of the scholarships.
Good.
So many different, just those nuances of all the different steps of homeschooling. We have Kimberly Tucker from the Homeschool Hive, who is very well known in the Tampa area and across the state.
Yes.
She's one of those people, once you know her, like she's your friend for life. She's just that person that everybody loves.
Yeah.
But she'll be there talking about Homeschool 101 and just those people who are stepping into this for the first time and what that looks like.
She's a great person for that.
Dina, who is, one of the board members with HEF, she's got a few sessions for people with older kids. Like, what do those middle grades look like when you're dealing with a middle schooler?
Yeah.
What does it look like when you're launching your student from high school into college or whatever their next step is?
Nice.
There's something for everybody, whether you're thinking about it or you're brand new or you've been in it for a while or you're coming into high school. All different types of curriculum options, a lot of living education things this year, which was interesting. We actually had to separate out a whole separate category for living education.
What is living education? I'm an idiot.
So it's things that weren't really curriculum necessarily. Like we have someone coming and looking at some of these VR, situations that are happening. We have someone, she's going to do a couple different sessions on gardening and homesteading with your kids. So just those things where you're looking at this real world experience. What does that look like? A lot of entrepreneurship. The lineup for the teens this year, I already told my kids, like, you are going to sessions, so figure out which ones you want to do.
Oh, slow down. You've got so much going on. I don't want anybody.
I know there's so much.
To miss it though. I don't want anybody to miss it. So, so they call them living education. Is that what it is? Okay.
Right. So So
I think of them as outside the box. You got those.
So living education, it's those things that are not your typical, like you're not going to find a course for it in school, right? Okay. But it's, raising and leading teens.
Got you.
So living education. So world schooling. What is world schooling? And it doesn't mean you have to spend thousands of dollars to travel.
Yes.
It means creating spaces where your kids can experience the world and use that as an education, whether it's in your hometown or driving a couple towns away and taking a long weekend or flying to Europe, depending on where your finances are. Tons on parenting and discipleship. We have a whole lineup for the kids this year.
Yeah, talk to me more about that.
Yeah. So one of the things when we were creating the conference that we really wanted to make sure that we're providing a space where the teens can come in and have something that it's not just, here's this workshop your parents are attending that you'll probably enjoy, but here's this thing that's just for you, right? So where the speakers are directly talking to the teens without their parents around. Cool. For example, we have a local entrepreneur, very well known in our area, and he did a session last year, packed house, and he's going to come back and do it again. How to start your own business, right? So like, what does that look like? What were the steps that he needed to take, and how did he go from idea to successful business? Creating a winning digital footprint. So recognizing that if you're online, which they all are, whether or not you say your kids have social media in some way, even if they're watching YouTube videos, they're getting connected into an algorithm. Yep. So helping them to understand how that algorithm is working for them. Yeah. So digital safety, personal safety, SAT math. Mr. D is sending one of his instructors to do a math session. I know we love Mr. D. Understanding your personality type, which is a really cool one. Oh yeah. We have Rachel Good. She's a local mom. She did a session where it's, instead of understanding your child's learning style, it's understanding your child's personality type and teaching them to their personality. And then on the flip side, she'll do one for the kids, helping them to understand what their personality type actually is. Yeah. And then one of my favorites is homeschooling now. What does that mean? Because what we're seeing is we don't just have these kids, like my kids, it's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know a world outside homeschooling. They've been homeschooling since they were 5. I mean, they've been homeschooling their whole life, really. But, you know, from kindergarten on, they've never stepped foot in a public school. We're finding more and more kids are getting pulled out of school situations into a home education environment at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. It's different and scary for them. So for them to connect with a homeschool graduate and have her share her perspective on why homeschooling was the best thing that ever happened to her, that means more to them than some mom standing up there
Reagan?
talking to them. Reagan.
Yeah, I love Reagan. She's great.
Yeah.
I love her.
So Reagan is going to talk to the kids like, I've been homeschooled my whole life, and this is why it was awesome and why you should embrace it.
She's an amazing choice for that. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. You know,
she's also going to do a session on Teen Impact as well.
Oh, good. Very good. That's so important. You're making me think of back when I started homeschooling in Alabama. I'm not from Florida originally. And man, this ear set hurts my ear, but now it makes me look like dopey because hang on. So in Alabama, when I grew up, I started homeschooling around 8th grade. Halfway through 8th grade, I think, is when my mom pulled me. So I would have been around that 13-year-old mark. And I didn't care about anything that you're talking about. Maybe I was too dumb to think about graduation and what it would mean and any of that stuff. I knew that girls were cute and I didn't like books. And that's about as far as I had gotten in a lot of my thoughts.
Sounds about like the 8th grade boys I know.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I had somehow gotten my mom to homeschool us because I had a crush on this girl that was visiting from Tennessee. She visited church and she was homeschooled. And I was like, that'd be so cool to be, you know, homeschooled too, Mom. That's what we should do. And I somehow talked her into it. Turns out to be a great choice because I was doing great in school up until 6th grade. And then as soon as I hit 7th, everything tanked. I don't know why. I was a straight A student. And then I hit 7th grade and I was making C's, you know, across the board. And then as I got further into 8th grade, I don't know if it was my attitude got worse or if it was the environment was hostile to boys. I don't know. But I just know it wasn't working.
Or boredom. I know you. It was
definitely boredom.
Probably boredom.
Yeah. But it wasn't working. And, you know, when parents can't put their finger on why, they still have to do something. You know, figure something out, you know. Till the soil so you can plant something fresh. And I think that's what my mom ended up doing. And I'm thankful for that because I got to take the time back and burn through what she found for me. And I remember going to some of the conferences with her, and there wasn't anything for kids there, though. There was a bunch of tables with books or curriculums, and some boring guy would talk for 2 hours and make you sit there like a church sermon about the importance of things. And then I couldn't wait to leave, you know. But it was one of those things that hearing everything that you have prepared, all of the breakout sessions, the helpful little bits of pieces, connecting people who have been there and done that with other people and letting them meet and greet like this. These conferences nowadays are so much better. They've come so far, and you're doing an amazing job. So thank you.
And they're so important
for all the work you do putting it together.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely in conference season. It's we just came out of camp season at our church, and I've been so busy with that. Yeah. And then everyone's like, oh, because we run a homeschool group too. So everyone's like, oh, now that camp is over and Salt is on break for the summer, you get to rest, right? And I just laugh. Because there's no rest, but it's fine.
No, I'm gearing up to the next big thing.
Yeah, I'll rest the day after the conference because I fly to my mom's for a vacation. You know, so in conversation recently with someone, another homeschool leader in the state of Florida, she indicated that she felt like in-person conferences were going away and were a thing of the past, and these online conferences were going to be new. And I have to say, I respectfully disagree wholeheartedly. Yep. I think that more and more people are getting to a point where they're craving that connection and that time together. And it's so important. Like you said, we're recognizing that there's only so far you can go in a digital relationship.
Yep.
And there is a time and a place for those things. But there also is a time and a place for coming together.
That's correct.
And we are more and more recognizing the importance of that. And that's why when we created this conference, we wanted a space where if you want to come, just you and your girlfriends or just you and your husband, great, come do that. If you want to come with the kids, bring them. We have the kids zone, we have the splash pad, we have the playgrounds. Like there's things there for the kids, and bring your teens because we want them to get something out of it too. It's their education.
Yeah.
So have homeschool conference and not conference to the teens as well.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that. I can't tell you how much I love that. I wish there had been someone who was capable of breaking through my thick skull when I first started. There was like workshops for teens or something like that. They could have gotten through to me. Maybe I would have been further in life, but you know, it always felt like this is for the parents. I'm along for the ride, and you know, is it fun yet? You know, and I just love that you're facilitating, crafting spaces for them. So the parents need what they need, right? Like I talk to some of these parents at the different conventions, and their kids are tugging on them, and you know, they're sticking lollipops in their mouths to try to get them to shut up so they can have a conversation, and they're juggling a lot, and it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, and the parent has a need, and that need isn't always filled when they can't like engage on that. And so giving the kids something that's for them, that's helpful to them, that is engaging for them and like useful to them, that the parents can then go, oh, cool, I have space to like dive in on my thing that I needed to focus on while I'm here. That is such a critical thing that you have captured and like solved with your conference. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Like you've done an amazing job with that. And I very much look forward to TBHC's the conference because it is so well done. You're amazing. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for all the support that you give to us from that, because I don't know if parents know. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, you know, anytime that I talk to people about what we're doing at TBHC, we can only do what we're doing because you do what you're doing. That is my over and over again. It's my mantra to people. We as home education parents can only do our jobs and do them well if we're supporting you in doing your job and doing it well. Just like we were talking about before, right? Like freedom, we can't take it for granted. We have to fight for it. So through the conference, you know, our sponsorship money that comes in from our top tier sponsors, like a percentage of that goes to HEF. Any food that's sold on site at TBHC, any profit that we get off the food, so the vendors pay us a percentage, it all goes straight to HEF. Like we don't keep a cent of it. And that's just so you can continue to do what you're doing, because it's all for nothing if you guys aren't in Tallahassee. And continuing to do things like you're doing with the Discord and with the connections in the community. We need all of those pieces of what you're offering so we can continue on our journey. And just to touch on one of the things you talked about before, like, so one of the things when you come to face with someone is, I think it helps you overcome a difference, right? So, you know, if you look at a mom who's been homeschooling for 10, 15 years, and she doesn't want the PEP, right? Maybe she's happy to stay home education with the county. She doesn't want to touch the money. She's got a thing and she doesn't want that. But then the PEP came along, and now there's this PEP mom who is sending her kids to Florida virtual and then, you know, doing some co-ops and not really homeschooling the way this old school mom would want her to be. You can have lots of comments for each other back and forth about that through Facebook. But when you're standing face to face and you see the humanity of the person and you recognize that that person is just doing what they feel is best for their family in the best way they can, there's a newfound respect that comes from that. So by coming together and having events like this, it's helping us to connect those gaps in the home education community, because the us versus them can't be all these little factions of homeschooling. It has to be us as a home education community versus those who are against home education. And the only way that we're going to be able to fight against that is by having a solid voice of saying, I may not fully agree with the way that you're doing your home education, but I agree that you have a right to choose that because you are directing the education of your child the way you see fit. And that is the platform that we all stand on. And that needs to become the platform that we all stand on.
Absolutely. I can echo that. There's a fallacy in thinking where the life that I experience just must be what everybody experiences. And that it's easy to fall into that and then go very hard, draw very hard lines on our conclusions on things. And then we meet somebody face to face and I go, man, if I was in your shoes, maybe I would have to do what you're doing. That's an interesting pivot. I don't know what I would do in your circumstance, like I'm glad that's not me. Like there's a lot of moments where you have now dissonant thoughts that disrupt what you thought was normal and a given, and that's critical. That's very important. It's very important. You see them face to face, you see them as a person, you see the reality that they're dealing with, the struggle, and then you go, okay, well that's legitimate. It legitimizes. It truly does. In the same way, you know what? The representatives and the senators have echoed the same sentiment when these parents come and they speak in the committee meetings and they say, hey, this is what we're living in. This is our situation. This is how it's affecting us. Please do this or please don't do this. It has a massive impact, and that it's real and it's valid. And it's something that we have to understand has been the way of carving out our rights that Brenda has done for the last 40 years. Having a person show up face to face and go, oh, no. I heard it recently from the DOE, the chief of staff at DOE. He literally said, we had helped with the bill for the extracurricular sports. And we became aware of you whenever you pushed back on that, and you were right. And then we thought the situation that you were talking about was like a one-off. Like there were, a handful, maybe one or two people struggling with this. And then you sent us the list of all the people who, and thank you all the parents. Let me tell you right now, thank you to all of you parents who agreed to send me your contact information and information about your kids, who you talked to in your districts, what they had said to you, because I'm a spreadsheet guy, I guess. I don't think of myself as one, but I made it and I sent it over and they were like, wow, we didn't know. We didn't know all of these cases existed. So it really goes back to that face-to-face, those interactions, people being human together, not just like word warriors online. It's important. It is so vital at every stage of policy driving. It's very important. And that
I was just going to add to that. This is why we call for parents to ignore our dog if you can hear that. This is why we call for parents to show up at the Capitol when there's something happening too, because being face to face does make a difference with the legislators. I had someone in the Senate actually say that to me last session, that they were arguing over the restrictions for extracurriculars, and he actually said, seeing your children's faces standing right in front of me took this from ink on paper to something real. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference to be in person, whether you're talking about influencing policy or, like Kim was talking about, bridging those differences in opinions and approaches. The in-person interactions really do make a difference.
Yeah, whether we're talking about the valid purchase of a theme park ticket that's used for educational benefit to give exposure to educational opportunities, cultural differences, and the litany of things home education parents will actually use those for. Not just a theme park. I hate the theme parks. I'm not using it for that. That's not me. But some go and they brave the crowds and the lines, and they use them as actual teaching moments where they'll teach their kids. Just because no one else thinks of doing it that way doesn't mean it's not being done that way. And when you bring that to life for someone, they go, oh, actually, that's pretty perspective broadening that you do it that way. And it's different. It hits different. Or a 55 or 80-inch television. Like, oh, your child is legally blind. Okay. Didn't consider that. Yeah, of course you didn't consider that. That's why we're putting a face before you and demonstrating the validity of these things. It's not for every single person, but when those children are in those places and the parents live with them every day because it's their child, they know best. Period.
Yep.
And they should be, and that's the thing, getting back to unity of voice. Finding unity in a community where there's dissonant media articles or positions, or maybe we're Democrat, maybe we're Republican, maybe we don't like either, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we're Christian, maybe we're not Christian, maybe we're Jewish, maybe we're atheist, whatever all of the dissonance is. There's one thing we should all be able to agree upon, and that's that parents should be the authority to make the choices for their kids over their education. And they should have first right of refusal. It should be by default. The parent's first option should be, hey, you can do it yourself. That should always be the very first stopping point. You can do it yourself. Yep. You're expected to do it yourself. Like that's ultimately it. Government is a construct of us, the people, and so are all of the other entities that taxes pay for, and we do policy on that. It's not a given. Those aren't a given. That my child was born and it's my responsibility, that's a given. Yeah, because it's nobody else's job to take care of my kids. It's mine. That's a given. And if all the other stuff falls apart, that will still be true. And so that needs to be the thing that's carved out as a right and a choice. And we all should agree upon that and stand up for that, whether it's in the scholarship or not in the scholarship and this or that. And then all the details kind of go from there. But that's something we should all be able to agree upon. Parents first. They should be the authority of the decision makers. Period.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Even if they choose to put their child into public school, that's still their choice.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. I guess I didn't finish that thought. You're right. So it should be their first right of refusal. And then if they go, hey, this sounds great, but I don't know that higher level chemistry, or that robotics thing looks cool, like, go there. I was talking to the parent over this weekend, and I was like, you know what? Some of these public schools have great teachers. They do. Some of them do. Some of these teachers are phenomenal, and they love what they do. And
I know many of them personally.
Wouldn't it be great if they could get paid more because, I don't know, the kid could select that class to take the money to and be like, I want to take that class and have more of that class and more of that teacher, and that teacher gets paid well? That's great. I think that'd be awesome. Yep. Sure. And so what people don't realize is that the scholarship can be used that way, where the funds can get spent by the parent at the public school for a class if they just get their paperwork done and move on.
Right.
But, parents first, they choose. It's a DIY by default. And then let's take classes here or there, or, you know what, I need more than a class. Okay, great. This array of options can and does exist.
Yeah.
But they're options. They're choices. The parent should be the one with the authority to make it.
I talked to a grandmother this week, and she was saying that her daughter was home educating the grandchildren, and she went with her the first year to the FPEA conference, and she was literally overwhelmed, blown away by all the choices. And I think a lot of times that's what parents are facing today, is there are such a variety of choices for parents to try to pick the right one for their child is kind of challenging. So they took a deep breath, didn't buy anything, just looked, and then later made some choices. But, even if parents are overwhelmed and their home situation is so rough that they can't home educate, it's not the end of the world if they put them in a private school or a public school.
Yeah.
That they can choose, and they can choose which public school they want to go to, or which charter school, or the virtual school. I mean, there's a lot of public school choices. So people that are opposed to choice shouldn't be opposed to choice, because there are options available in the public school as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that variety of choices.
But ultimately, your point is it's the parent's decision for their child. I'm sorry, Crystal.
It's okay. I was just going to say that variety of choice is another reason why Kim's point of bringing experienced parents alongside newer ones is so helpful, because it's going to be different for every family.
Yeah.
But the ones that have been around a while and know what the options are can cut through a lot of the overwhelm and confusion for the newer families and help them find, not force them into what they're doing because they want everybody to do what they're doing, but just help them cut through all the options and find what's really going to be the best fit for their family and their needs.
Absolutely. I see so many times people asking about advice for curriculum or co-ops or all the things, and people just start regurgitating. And I'm like, whoa, how old are your kids? What area do you live in? Do you want it online or not? Like, there's questions to ask to assess the needs that they have. You can't just throw out information based on what worked for your kid, you know?
Right.
I mean, let's be real, like from one kid to the next, it's like learning all over again. You know, we were using the same math for years. I thought it was great. And then along comes my daughter with dyslexia to throw a whole nother, I don't even know what I'm doing from day to day with that one, you know?
Yeah.
So it's important. But someone who's been there knows to ask those questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And well, a thoughtful person. Like I used to train salespeople who worked for cell phone carriers back in the day. And you know, a lot of them would go in like, this is the best phone, this is the best thing, this is the best plan, this is the best that. And it's like, whoa, you don't know what their situation is. What if they end up telling you they're looking for something for grandma and for this, for that? Right. Grandma doesn't want the big fancy iPhone. She wants the flip phone. This was back when flip phones were, you know.
I kind of want a flip phone, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd like to go back to a flip phone.
Bring back pagers. I'll call you in 2 hours when I buy a pay phone.
Maybe I might.
but asking questions is key and getting into it. And with all of the variety of options, it can be overwhelming, just like you said. But keep in mind, for our community, keep in mind we're diving into it and you're overwhelmed with all the options, but there are just as many keyboard warriors sitting on their couch who are completely unaware that any other options exist. And if you don't know there are other options, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You're choosing by default the only thing you're aware of. And that is a reality for many. That's a reality for a larger part of the overall population than homeschoolers. Have to keep that in mind. Have to keep that in mind when we're going into some of these conversations online. Is that there is a gigantic swath of people who are in there in what you think is a private Facebook group, listening to your messages, ready to use it against you. And they have no awareness at all of the validity or the options or the information of the choices. They just see one thing. And that's all they want, all they care about, and all they think about. And that breaking through that dialogue has to be done face to face. Just keep that in mind when you're online and you're in these spaces. And if you're looking for a place, I'll go back to this. If you're looking for a place that has accurate information, that is dedicated to accuracy in information, let me put it that way. We will always be looking to update links or update information or documents, inform parents of their rights and where they come from and what they are. I think it's really key that if you don't know your rights, you can't defend them. If you don't know what you're fighting for or about or over, you really truly can't defend it. And so that's what we work to do there, is help give you information on what your rights are, how they're spelled out, what that looks like in statute, how the definitions work, what the definitions are, where that information can be found, so you can think for yourself. You can know, and when you're a keyboard warrior, you can be far more accurate as long as you can cite your sources and know what you're talking about. Because that's really the key to the rumor, is the dismantling rumors is just accurate information. It's just truth.
Right.
So we work to help parents sift through that and find that and have a place for discussion. There's dads groups are in there. Moms areas are in there. We have places for evaluators in our Discord. So if you're an evaluator and you're looking to help home education families and you want to be in there, there is a place for you. We also have a place in there for our vendor supporters. The recognition wall on our website, the same opportunity is extended to our vendors for them to be there in our Discord so that you can see who supports us. And if they're local to you, engage with them or talk with them, reach out to them, do business with them. That support goes a long way. It matters. Matters a lot to us, the individual parents that we see supporting us, but also the people who are willing to go, yeah, my whole family, my whole business has benefited from this. It's a beautiful thing. We believe in it. We'll help you push that forward. And so, see them and know that they're with us. And then TBHC Group, do you want to tell them how to find you on Facebook or your website, things like that, so that people can get information about your conference?
Sure. So keep it simple. So you can find us at TBHC Group on Instagram and Facebook. Okay. And our website is tbhcgroup.com.
Great.
Nice and simple. So for those of you who are listening, if you have not yet purchased your conference tickets, there is a special promo code going on through this week for anyone who is listening to this podcast. And feel free to share it with your friends too. It is HEF 2025. If you use that code when you're purchasing your tickets, you'll get $10 off.
Ooh, HEF 2025.
So being a procrastinating homeschooler just worked out to your benefit.
That's awesome. Yay. That's pretty much all of us, right?
Tell them what TBHC stands for.
TBHC, it initially started as Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference, but we kind of just kept that as the business name. So, the idea is that we offer community and consultation and conference and, all of the pieces of what we do, it kind of fits within that C. So TBHC is grouping all of it together in one spot.
Awesome.
I can't always remember the letters, and if they fail to write it down, I thought if they knew the whole name, then
Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference is
letters.
yeah. Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's so many acronyms.
That is a good point.
LOL.
Yes.
Well, listen, thank you. It's past 1:00, so thank you so much, Kim, for being with us today, and thank you for all of the immense work that you put into planning such an awesome conference, and I look forward to being there. The dates are July. You changed them this year. 12th. Yeah, July 12th. Yeah. So it's going to be awesome, and we didn't even talk about some of the career and technical people who are going to be there.
AmSkills is going to be there. Yeah. We've got Front Range Construction Academy is going to be there. They're a new vendor that just got added on recently. We're very excited about them.
That's awesome.
Everyone from local therapies to curriculum to co-ops. Yep. You name it, they're there.
Yeah. It's going to be great, and I look forward. It's
exciting.
I can't wait to catch up.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, listen, if you're a parent and you are looking for that community, our Discord server is still there. If you're a supporter, we want to say thank you. Thank you to Kim for being with us. Brenda, is there anything that you have to add before we sign off for today?
No, but I'm thrilled to see that Kim is adding career and technical stuff to the conference.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Crystal, is there anything that you want to say before we call it a day?
No, I'm excited about the conference, though. I'm from Tampa, so even though we're in Tallahassee now, I always look forward to the Tampa conference. It's like a little mini reunion for me. I see lots of homeschool people I know there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Can't wait to have you guys. It'll be fun.
We are definitely looking forward to it. So I'm going to sign us out here. Thank you all for listening in and being with us on Monday, June 23rd, 2025. There will be more coming. And the legislative session just ended. And you think that we're on break and it's slowed down, but it hasn't. We're just having all the conversations in the background that we can't really tell everybody about yet. All the planning meetings and one-on-ones and development. I will say this, if you have a great relationship with someone in your county or district that you think it would be good for us to meet with, do send us a message and let us know, because we would be happy to come make a face-to-face connection with them, even if I have to drive all the way down and be there myself. We love those relationships and connections, and this is the time where we dive into making those and shoring them up and joining the meetings and the planning meetings and the workshop meetings. So without further ado, we'll say thank you to our top sponsors, our Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and of course, today's guest, TBHC Group. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and happy schooling.